All right, let's get cooking. Welcome to the latest edition of Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD. I want to thank you all for taking the time out to join us. And as always, we welcome any suggestions, feedback, comments, and criticisms, which improves the quality of our program, which ultimately improves your listening experience. Before we get started, I want to tell all of you thank you for your tremendous support. People are slowly but surely finding out about who we are and what we do. They enjoy and respect the passion with which we speak. But as we always say here at Chin Check Sports Radio, we do this because we love it, as we are simply sharing our passion with you all as we continue to build our listening army to take over the world. It's been a while. It's definitely been a while, good people, that you've been hearing from us. And definitely we got to thinking of some good quality content for you all. Is to put together another fantasy warfare, another fantasy matchup. And that's something that we did start off hot and heavy. That was another branch of our entertainment, and we know we have been falling off from that, and we definitely wanted to kind of jump back into that slowly but surely. But that's nothing that we want to just slap together matchups that make sense. Matchups, are they going to be exciting, a competitive fight, win or lose? Definitely shout out to the Adams Boxing Show. Those guys do a great job of putting together all types of fantasy matchups, and we definitely comment on them. So they definitely have taken the lead in that area of fantasy matchups, but we definitely want to do our part and bring you another one featuring the late Diego Chico Corrales versus Gervonta Tank Davis. Folks, if you want to talk about a bang-em-up fight, a fight that's definitely some leather's going to be thrown, these are guys that were, again, in similar weight classes, super featherweight and lightweight. We don't just want to just do Mike Tyson versus a Floyd Mayweather if they were the same size. No, we generally like guys in the same weight class, or guys who were at their best in the same weight class. So from super featherweight to lightweight, and these are guys when they both were dominant in those weight classes, that we feel that it's definitely going to be an exciting matchup. Diego Corrales passed away in May of 2007 at the age of 29. Rest in power to Chico. Standing 5'10" in height with a 70-inch reach. I've heard people say 5'11", 5 feet 10 and a half. 45 total fights, 40 big wins, 33 wins by knockout with 5 losses. Some notable fights in the career of Chico. October of 1999, a TKO victory in the 7th round against Robert Garcia. Does that name sound familiar to you all? Yes, the Robert Garcia, who is a current boxing trainer and the older brother of champion Mikey Garcia. That family. March of 2018, a TKO victory in the 3rd round against Derek Smoke Gainer. For my older boxing fans, if that name rings a bell, remember during the 90s when Roy Jones was HBO's top fighter? You can say between him and Oscar De La Hoya, but Roy Jones was either 1 or 1A. Well, Roy Jones used a lot of his influence to obviously to bring his people up. Since Roy was a major star, of course, you can look out for his people from Pensacola and the people on his team. Derek Smoke Gainer was one of the guys that was on his team. So Derek Smoke Gainer, a lot of his exposure was a direct benefit of fighting on a Roy Jones Jr. undercard. September of 2000, a TKO victory in the 3rd round against one Angel Manfredi. January of 2001, a TKO in the 10th round loss to one Floyd Pretty Boy Mayweather. Now, when it comes to Floyd Mayweather, they was always trying to minimize his wins, but whenever he fights a person, it's either going to be a competitive fight, a fight that he's going to lose, a fight that he's not going to come out unscathed, and he pretty much walks through a guy, which is what he did against Corrales. 5 knockdowns, easy outboxed Chico, and go back and check this stuff. See, that's the beauty of the internet. You see, people can't hide behind what they say because you can go back and find it. And that fight was an even money fight. The brilliance of Floyd Mayweather, the knockout power of Chico. And by the way, Chico was 33-0 going into this fight with a whole bunch of knockouts. So people was basing on Chico's height, length, and knockout ability. Again, he wasn't the Floyd Mayweather that we've come to know. Now let's go back to 2001, your top fighters in the world, especially January, all your Roy Jones, your Oscar De La Hoyas, your Felix Trinidad's, your Lennox Lewis, your Prince Nassim Hamed's, your Barrera. So you would go down the line of Floyd Mayweather just at that top 10 or just below that top 10 in terms of pound-for-pound fighters. So definitely a dominant performance, but a loss nonetheless in the career of Chico Corrales. October of 2003, a TKO loss in the 6th round due to cuts in the mouth of one Corrales, but he lost against former Cuban standout Joel Casamayor, and definitely a solid fight up until that point. March of 2004, in the rematch, a split decision win over Joel Casamayor. August of 2004, a TKO victory in the 10th round against Brazilian champion and lightweight champion Acelino Popo Freitas. Now, if you go back and watch that fight, Freitas had a very unorthodox boxing style, a lot of the herky-jerky. He had a surprise attack offense. It wasn't a very conventional offense. He used a lot of lateral movement, especially in that fight, getting away from the power punching of one Corrales. And Popo, we thought, out of the first 5-6 rounds, won the first 5 or 6 rounds, and it wasn't even close. Crashing home his right hand, throwing in the occasional left hook. His punches didn't really seem to have an effect on Corrales or stopping Corrales in his tracks. But again, it's about scoring points, and that's what Freitas was doing. But really, at the end of the 6th, 7th round, he was starting to get hit against the ropes a little bit more, standing against the ropes with his hands down, and he was getting caught. And the first knockdown was in the 8th round, was quite frankly a hellacious knockdown. And Popo spit out the mouthpiece that actually bought him more time from the knockdown. In the 9th round, suffered another knockdown. In the 9th round, again, another hellacious knockdown. Once again, spit out the mouthpiece. This time he was deducted a point by the referee. Because again, you can't spit the mouthpiece out. And we're gonna say this again in Chico's next fight. In the 10th round, another knockdown. You saw Popo get up, and the referee was gonna let him continue fighting. And you saw Popo kind of wave the referee. He waved the fight off, and he quit in the ring. A lot of people tend to forget that part. He did. So Diego Corrales, a TKO victory in the 10th round against Acelino Popo Freitas. May of 2007, which for those of you who are Corrales fans, is probably the fight right here. TKO in the 10th round against Jose Luis Castillo. Till this day, ladies and gentlemen, that is considered the greatest boxing match of all time, or at least one of the greatest of all time. Folks, everything you've heard and read about that fight is true. Even going into the fight, people knew that it was going to be an action-packed fight. That's how serious this fight was. We'll say this again. Going into that fight, you knew it was going to be an action-packed fight, along the same lines of a Gatti Ward. You knew it was going to be an action-packed fight. And really with the Gatti Ward fights, the first Gatti Ward fight, the action really picked up from the 5th round. The 9th, when Ward unleashed a combination on Gatti. The hellacious 9th round, where they scored the body shot and Gatti was almost done. So the second fight with the busted eardrum, I believe it was a busted eardrum in the second fight. But that fight, and I believe Gatti boxed some more. And maybe I could be wrong, but Gatti had boxed some more in the second fight. The third fight, when Gatti broke his hand and was basically fighting with one arm. So the drama of those 3 fights, this fight here was from opening bell till the last round, to the 10th round, was action-packed toe-to-toe. Eric Mangini, you guys constantly see him on First Things First, on Fox Sports or the Colin Cowherd Show, giving his input on football. And naturally, he was a defensive coordinator, won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots under Bill Belichick, became the head coach of the New York Jets, became the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. To motivate his team, showed them this boxing match. That's how this fight is considered one of the greatest fights of all time in terms of purebred action. But going into the action of the fight, Jose Luis Castillo scores 2 knockdowns against Corrales. Corrales spits the mouthpiece out, something that he saw Popo Freitas do in a previous fight. He spits the mouthpiece out, buys him more time. The ref deducts some points. His trainer, Joe Goosen, says, "You better effing get it." And Corrales unleashes a barrage of punches that the referee stopped the fight. And I know Castillo claimed that, well, he was knocked down twice and the referee didn't stop the fight then. Well, the difference is he was knocked down. He still had his faculties about himself. He spat out the mouthpiece to buy him more time. He was still within his right frame of mind. Versus Castillo, who was against the ropes, hands down, eating punches, and clearly not defending himself. So we agree that was a perfect stoppage. And in a fight of the year, one of the greatest fights of all time, Chico Corrales, TKO in the 10th round against Jose Luis Castillo. But of course, you know how boxing fans are. We got to have the rematch. October of 2005, Castillo coming and reporting to the scales, 3 pounds overweight, scores a KO victory in the 4th round. October 7th, a split decision loss against Joel Casamayor in a trilogy. In April of 2007, which unfortunately turned out to be his last fight, a unanimous decision loss, moving up in weight against Joshua Clottey, who later on lost to Manny Pacquiao years later. Gervonta Tank Davis. Tank Davis standing 5'5" in height with a 67.5-inch reach. Tank Davis is a southpaw versus Chico, who is an orthodox fighter. Tank Davis, 30 total fights, 30 big wins, 28 wins by knockout. So some key fights in the career of old Tank Davis. Pretty much the fight that got people's attention, the Yuriorkis Gamboa fight, a TKO in the 12th round, December of 2019. A hellacious uppercut, October 2020, against Leo Santa Cruz. Again, KO 6th round. I mean, wow, that's all we can say to that. June of 2021, we were actually at that fight. A TKO in the 11th round against one Mario Barrios. December of 2021, a unanimous decision win against Isaac Cruz. Again, one a few times Tank could not knock anybody out. May of 2022, a TKO victory in the 6th round against Rolly Romero. Really in a fight that Romero talked himself into actually the fight as opposed to actually earning his opportunity. April of 2023, we covered this fight. KO in the 7th round via body shot against Ryan Garcia. And just June of this year, June of 2024, KO in the 8th round against one Frank Martin. Anybody watching the fight knew that once Martin stopped moving, he definitely was a sitting duck, and that's exactly what happened. Now, how do we analyze this fight? We just read you the tail of the tape and their knockouts. So this goes to, how do you favor this matchup? Gervonta Tank Davis, if you want to go by, especially the Frank Martin fight, was coming forward, was constantly stalking Frank Martin. He's not going to have that advantage against Corrales because Corrales is a straight-ahead, flat-footed fighter. We talked about how Popo Freitas was out boxing him and moving around. Well, guys who moved and boxed, who had quickness and lateral movement, always gave Chico trouble. Floyd Mayweather, Freitas, and Casamayor, again, a Cuban boxing system. So they always gave him some problems. So now, if Tank was to come ahead and Chico was to come ahead, something's going to have to give. And I don't think it's going to bode very well for Tank because of Corrales' power. Now, Tank Davis, I don't think gets a lot of credit for being a good boxer and being able to adjust a lot of movement that he can have. I think he's an excellent counterpuncher. And I don't think Tank gets the credit for that. I know we look at his knockouts and we see his spectacular knockouts, but I don't think Tank gets the credit for being an excellent counterpuncher. And Tank does that. I mean, the knockdowns against Ryan, the first knockdown against Ryan Garcia was off of a beautiful counterpunch. The punch that he knocked out Rolly Romero with was basically fighting off the ropes. So this guy can generate power coming at you or fighting off the ropes. But if you look at if you look at Tank's fights, he was losing the Frank Martin fight until Tank started to pick his spots. We felt he was losing the Mario Barrios fight because of Barrios' height and length. Had Barrio maybe kept boxing and not let the whole Mexican Aztec war thing get into his head, he probably could have won that fight. Chico, and again, Mario Barrios didn't have the power to back off Tank the way that Corrales has a power to back off Tank. So that's the funny part. Tank's movement, we feel, would befuddle Chico. However, Chico has the power to keep Tank honest. If you look at that Frank Martin fight, when he kept coming at Frank Martin, Tank had no respect for Frank Martin's power. Had really no respect for Mario Barrios' power. He might have had respect for the speed and the quickness of Ryan Garcia, which is why he didn't go charging at him like that. Which is what we said he was going to do, was use Ryan Garcia's attitude and aggression against him, and that's exactly what happened. Against Corrales, he's going to be dealing with a straight-ahead fighter that's looking to land a basic 1-2-3 combination. He's going to be hit hard. Tank does have a chin. I don't think Tank gets enough credit for his chin. However, has he faced a power puncher like a Corrales? However, Corrales doesn't have the greatest chin, and Floyd Mayweather can knock him down 5 times. What could Tank Davis do if a shot misses? So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Definitely the leather would fly. Now, Corrales, we feel, can maybe start off a little slow, but Tank Davis is known to start off slow. So now that kind of, because again, Tank warmed up in the Frank Martin fight. We felt he was losing against Mario Barrios, but then his power bench, he took over. We have Chico landing hard bombs, where it's the first time I think Tank is going to be in the ring with somebody who's just as strong as him, who has just as much punching power. But can Tank Davis withstand the blows of a Corrales? Now, can a Corrales withstand the punches by Tank Davis? I feel once Tank moves, and Tank, again, doesn't get a lot of credit for his adjustments. We feel he does a good job of adjusting during fights. He's very accurate with his punches, so we definitely give Tank that. He's definitely accurate with his punches. He definitely placed them at the right spot. I think this time he'll be fighting. He's going to have to utilize more foot movement and back against the ropes. We feel that he will have his back against the ropes. We feel that he can generate power with his back against the ropes. We do see a knockdown in this fight. We see both guys eating a knockdown. Now, if there's one guy who would eat a knockdown more than the other, will be Chico versus Tank. Tank, we feel, has an excellent chin. Chico's chin is a little bit shaky. So, in a fantasy matchup, Chin Check Sports Radio, between Diego Chico Corrales and Gervonta Tank Davis. If you want to do a drum roll, a pause, or get friends to the room to listen, we're picking Tank Davis by unanimous decision. Now, I will take that back. Tank Davis by a majority decision against the late Diego Chico Corrales. It'll be an excellent fight. People will be clamoring for a rematch. We feel, and the reason why we're picking Tank, we feel is that Tank's foot movement would serve him better getting away from a straight-ahead fighter. He has better lateral movement, better quickness. He has enough power. And while Chico is a straight-ahead fighter, he's going to land his punches, but can Chico take a lot of Gervonta's punches while coming on the inside? We feel that Chico's going to be countered. So we definitely expect an exciting fight, and we definitely want to say rest in power to Chico Corrales. I know before people say, well, Chin Check, he went to jail, prison for beating up his pregnant girlfriend. The man served his time for that. He came back, became a world champion again. We're not talking about the man's personal life. Tank Davis has the issues. Okay, in the personal life, we're talking about just two guys, combatants in the boxing ring. Something that we stated from my very first broadcast at Chin Check Sports Radio. This is why we do this show, because we respect the sacrifice that boxers make to their health and the fact that they only have a certain window to achieve their stardom or to maximize their earning potential. And then once those days are gone, they're just discarded and never thought of and never spoke about. And the one thing that we are proud of, to be part of a group of people who never let their spirit die, who never let their names vanquish. And that's one thing that we are proud of at Chin Check Sports Radio, is when people say, hey man, the way you broke down that fight or that fighter, I never heard of that guy, or I might have heard of said fighter, but I didn't realize that he was that good. So a lot of times folks have told us, hey, we've actually gone back and watched YouTube fights of this guy. Man, you really educated us, to the guy being that good, or the way you broke it down. It was like everything that you said. So we're definitely proud of that. We're definitely going to continue that. Definitely, if you want to shoot us an email, it's going to be chinchecksportsradio@gmail.com. Once again, chinchecksportsradio@gmail.com. This has been one of the most fun fantasy warfare matchups that we've done. And until the next time, it's Chin Check Radio, signing out.